I lie in my bed and think I've killed someone, and I can lie in my bed for 3 months at a time, 4 months at a time. The realisation that I actually haven't done anything can come up to 6, 7 months later.
Connor has battled for a long time with his condition, and there comes a point where how long can you battle? You know, how long can you fight these intrusive thoughts?
Well, the outcome of OCD, if it's left untreated, varies. But for most people, it will become a chronic condition, and it could go on for many years to come if you don't do anything about it.
Feedback that we've had from patients is that it has changed their life. It is available in the NHS as well as private, but this is for only depression disorder.
I'm doing this film primarily to raise awareness for people with OCD, especially men that may think talking out makes them less of a man, and I think that's completely the opposite. I think talking out makes you stronger. I feel like this is the only option I've got left. I'm just living an existence. It's not a life to live.
As a child, to me, he was unique. A little different to the others. I revert to the occasion when he was going to get confirmed, and he wouldn't, because he said, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough to be confirmed. So he knew at that time perhaps the intrusive thoughts he was experiencing.
First time I remember having it, I was about 4 years old. It's just progressively got worse as I've got older, to the point now where it's just unbearable, really.
Obsessive-compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder, and that means it consists of both obsessions and compulsions. So an obsession is an intrusive thought or image or sensation, urge, which is extremely distressing to the individual. They reflect usually the person's values. So if you're a person who is generally peace-loving and want to be able to help people in the world, then you tend to get intrusive, violent thoughts.
I get these thoughts every minute of every day. So they primarily evolve around death, or they could be sexual, or they could be violence. It's about me being a bad person and how much I don't want to be a bad person.
In this picture here, this is sort of around the age, I think that the OCD was taking a hold of his life. He'd come into my room and he'd talk about this incident that he thought had happened, which obviously hadn't happened. And it was, no matter how I reassured him in his head, it had escalated and become something that it wasn't.
So my first girlfriend, I remember we were waiting for the bus and there was some bushes at the back of the bus stop. And I remember I got this intrusive thought, oh, people like get sexually assaulted in bushes and stuff like that. And then obviously my girlfriend was next to me, so I started panicking, thinking like, why would I think that when I'm with my girlfriend, kind of thing. And I just burst out crying.
These thoughts are of course extremely shameful to the individual with OCD, and it's the things that they would hate to happen worst of all.
People hopefully will not take Connor's intrusive thoughts as Connor. They are something that he doesn't want in his life. Otherwise he wouldn't be striving to erase them.
When I get the thoughts, the anxiety makes me panic. I'll get headaches, I'll get dizzy. Every time I bat off a thought, it'll come back and the intensity will be a little bit higher, and then I'll bat that off and get a little bit higher. And I'll bat that one off and the intensity just goes up and up and up to the point where I just can't cope with it.
The other flip side to obsessions is the compulsions, and these are things which have to be done over and over again. They know that this is senseless and absurd, but because they're full of doubts, they believe, well, it could happen, and I've got a sense of responsibility that I do not want it to happen.
The key compulsions for me are I get my phone out and I'll record my every move. So in my car I've got a dash camera in the front which records 180 degrees, so it gets pretty much both sides of the car. When I've got my phone camera, I'm always recording my other hand, so when I leave the house, I know I haven't hit anyone with this hand.
So have you been off to today, lad?
I was just making some tunes. That's the bottom melody, that's the middle melody, that's the top melody.
When do you reckon your first track will be released?
Soon.
Oh man. The last family holiday we went on, all together, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, we all went on this night out and he was convinced something bad happened.
We were all sitting outside the nightclub and one of the reps said to me that I done some sexual stuff with him in the toilets, and then he said, oh, I'm only joking. After that, once we'd flown home and then my girlfriend came to visit me, she could tell something wasn't right. About 10-20 minutes later I just burst out crying.
Although I was there on the night out with him and I reassured him that nothing bad happened, he genuinely believed there was no telling him otherwise.
So I flew to Spain. Unfortunately, when I got to the nightclub, the owner said they don't have CCTV. I went to the hotel where the reps were staying and they were all like, Connor, he's just joking, and the guy himself said he's just joking. Then I just went to sleep on a bench that night for about 6-7 hours and then flew back home the next day. My girlfriend left me.
I'd only been told about this sort of level of depression that you can get to through my mum, but this time I witnessed it for myself. Yeah, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone really, to be honest. You can't live a normal life.
He's our son, we support him, but he feels guilt for that he can't pay his own way. But he physically can't. You know, he's had jobs over the years, but he can't get himself to work and he can't get himself home from work.
I'd be driving there and I think I'd hit someone, I'd hit a pothole, and then my mind would think that's a person, so I'd have to drive back to that pothole, check, and I'd just be doing that for 2 or 3 hours, and I'd be knackered, and I'd have to fill my petrol up in my car. For the past year, I haven't been able to leave the house, just living in existence, really, in my bedroom.
Connor is a very caring soul, heart of gold, cares a lot about his family.
At every assessment Connor has, we go through the questions. Have you thought about suicide? Yes. Have you thought about how you would take your own life? Yes. Would you ever carry out that act? And his answer has always been no, because of the impact on the rest of his family. I'm very, very proud of the way he's coped with his condition, because
as a mum you're supposed to be able to like kiss it better or put a plaster on it, but you can't. You can't see it.
So I have 200 milligrams of sertraline every morning when I get up, and they're supposed to lessen the compulsions of OCD. But to me, I don't think they really work. In the evening at about 10 o'clock before I go to bed, I'll have olanzapine, just a small amount of antipsychotics. They help me sleep, and they're supposed to lessen the symptoms of OCD as well, but I don't really notice any difference. They just make me really docile.
He had a assessment with the early intervention psychosis team. They commented on the extent of Connor's OCD, that really he was one of the worst cases that they had.
How are you today? Good, thank you. Great, let's go in. TMS is also known as Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation, and it's a non-invasive procedure where electrical magnet is stimulating nerve cells in the brain, which it can either inhibit or exhibit neuron activity. Are you relaxed? Yeah, brilliant. So because of the overthinking and intrusive thoughts that the OCD patients experience, the TMS machine dampens down those thoughts and those feelings, so it inhibits and it decreases the overacting communication with the neurons in that region of the brain.
I just searched into Google, I cured my OCD, and it came up with an article of a guy who had TMS and he had severe intrusive OCD thoughts, and he said that his head was empty.
TMS is available in the NHS as well as private, but this is for only depression disorder. So with OCD, when people do come in, they start off firstly with a prescribed session for up to 10 sessions, and that's when you will know if you are responding to TMS. Each session costs £200, and standard OCD patient can go up to 30 sessions.
I worry about what he's going to do when mum and dad can't look after him. What path this OCD and this condition is going to take him down.
At the moment, I'm just living an existence. It's not a life to live, and if this doesn't work, I've always said to your mum, I said there's not really any point in me being on the earth because I'm not living a life. I'd rather be asleep, kind of thing.
If Connor could have this treatment, I would hope for a joyful future, one where he can feel the happiness that I do.
What would be the first thing you did?
Just go surfing.
Go surfing?
Yeah.
Where?
Go to Asia, just go surfing and
That freedom to live and to not constantly have to check everything that you've done, not have to film every movement that you make, you know, it will be liberating, won't it?
It mean the world to me if it works. I'll be able to travel the world, work full time, make my own money, get my own place, maybe be able to get a girlfriend again and not lose it because of the negative thoughts. Just live a normal life like everyone else, really. That'll be a miracle.